To finish your painting, we are going to add some trees that have some shadows and texture on them. We're going to add some snow, and we're also going to add some shadows that are in front of the trees because the moon will be behind the trees. On your paper plate palette, you will need some brown paint about the size of a quarter, some white paint about the size of a quarter, a small spot about the size of a dime of black paint, and then a small spot about the size of a dime, your blue or violet paint. I'm going to start with the brown. You're using a small brush now for this part of the project, and you are going to add a couple trees. I'm going to place these trees right at the top of this hill right here. I'm going to place a tree that goes up into the sky. I'm just going to let my brush just kind of drag off the paper. So the tree trunk is getting thinner as it goes towards the top of the paper. I'm going to add some branches, again, pressing harder, lifting up on the brush so that the branch gets thinner as it gets farther away from the trunk of the tree. Adding another branch here, pressing lightly just the end of the brush to get smaller little branches off of that main branch. So I'm going to add another tree right here at the bottom of this hill, and it's okay if your tree crosses over part of your moon and covers part of your moon. That's called overlapping, and overlapping is good because it shows depth in your painting, that the branch and the tree is in front of the moon. Sense of space in your painting. So add some little branches off of big branches. I'm going to add another tree right here, and it's okay that this tree may overlap my other two trees. So you're starting in the back, in your background. The trees that are farthest away should be the ones that you paint first. The trees that are closest to you get painted last. Add some branches, and it's okay that they overlap. Some little branches off the big branch. Now, even with dirty brush, I'm going to add some texture and some shadows on my tree. So I'm going to pick up some black, and on one side of the trunk, I'm going to add a shadow. One side of the branch, the bottom side of the branch, add a little shadow. Add a little shadow. Shadow. Bottom side of all the branches, one side of the trunk, just the end of your paintbrush. You don't want to cover the whole branch, just putting it on the edge of the trunk and the branch. So I have some texture now, I have a little shadow. I need to clean my brush off now in the water bucket. It's important that you actually take your bristles of your brush and wipe them on the bottom of the bucket or the wall of the bucket to get all the paint off of those bristles. If you just swirl it around in the water, all that paint will just stay in your brush, and you will be mixing it in the water forever. So wipe it on the bottom of the bucket or the wall of the bucket, and then take your brush and actually dry it off on your paper towel. You don't want to add any more water to the paint. I'm going to scoop a little bit of white and move it towards my blue. Pick up some blue. My job is to make a shadow that is darker than the value of the hill where the shadow is going to be. I'm going to take my brush, and the shadow is going to be on the opposite side of where the moon is shining on that tree. So I'm just taking my brush, and I'm going to add a shadow next to this tree. Add a shadow next to this tree. And that line should not be perfectly straight, so you can see me pressing down and up on my brush. Now I'm going to stop when I get to this hill right here. Do not paint through that hill. That hill is going to block the rest of that shadow. So I have shadows on the bottom of each, next to each tree. Clean my brush again, and now you can add some snow into your scene, your landscape. Again, dry off your brush after you clean it. You're gonna pick up just some white, and you can add some dots for snowflakes. Some people like to add little piles of snow on top of some of the branches. It's okay if the snow is on top of your tree and branches, and on top of your hill, some larger snowflakes, some smaller, depending on how hard you're pressing with the brush. The dots of snow will be larger or smaller. Be careful if your tree shadows, texture are still wet and you pick that up with your brush, you might want to wipe your brush off. So add as much or as little snow as you'd like. When you are done, brush into the bucket. Your project goes onto the board, onto the drying rack with somebody else's, and you can wrap up your newspaper or brown paper in paper plate and throw it into the trash.